Hello everybody, MegaZardX here, back at it again to give y'all another very exciting video. And man, it's crazy to think that we're literally less than a week away from us being able to have that shiny, brand new next generation console from Nintendo, with it being the Nintendo Switch 2. And man, oh man, I know there's some exciting times ahead, and shoot, we're just like right around the corner from Summer Game Fest, and who knows how many more announcements we can get for other consoles, including the Nintendo Switch 2 as well though. But it started to kind of make me think and started to reminisce. You know, you can't necessarily appreciate all the brand new stuff unless you go back and look at what you already had. And yes, I'm referring with the Nintendo Switch, because this is the last little bit of time that the Nintendo Switch is going to be the only console on the market from Nintendo that they're actively selling before the Switch 2 happens to drop. So in today's video, I just want to go through and just reminisce on all of my memories, some of my most favorite games and stuff like that, the announcements and everything else in between that happened ever since we managed to get that console drop back in March 3rd of 2017 to where we're currently at with today's date, on the precipice of a brand new generation for Nintendo though. So let's go ahead and jump up in it though. But if you hadn't already done so, make sure you go and hit that like button, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that bell to stay up to date on all things video game related I feel like talking about and discussing. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump straight up into this video. The Nintendo Switch, ooh man, we gotta rewind the clock back quite a bit though. But I remember back, what was it, around 2016 or something like that though, when we were still having the Wii U, and then we also had the 3DS as our home console and handheld equivalent and stuff like that. I remember hearing the whole entire thing with the project and stuff about them saying, hey, codename that NX, and Nintendo was very forefront about them saying, hey, we're about to get off this Wii U generation. We know we barely sold any consoles in terms of that though. Thankfully the 3DS was holding them afloat though, but I was hungry for the next new generation console, because it's like you had some charming games on the Wii U like Smash Brothers 4 and stuff like that, Splatoon 1, which I didn't know about at the time though until I got Splatoon 2 on the Switch though. And then, you know, a few other games here and there. Mario Maker was pretty cool though, but like, you know, the first party coolness, it was few and far between with that whole life cycle of the Wii U though. And I remember them talking up a storm with Breath of the Wild, and that was like their flagship title that they were moving over to the NX console though. And I can always think back to that January presentation where they gave us that whole entire lineup of all the stuff that was coming out in 2017, because that was a killer year and nothing to scoff at. Like man, that opening year, what we had Breath of the Wild in March, turn around and had April Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I don't think anything was really releasing in May. June, you turn around and had ARMS. July, Splatoon 2. Not really much going on in the pipeline thing for like August or maybe September. October, you had Mario Odyssey. I don't think too much was happening in November though. Oh, but I think maybe it was September we had Pokken Tournament DX or something like that. December, Xenolade Chronicles 2. Phenomenal launch year lineup though. But at least on that March 3rd of 2017, man, I was stoked to the moon about getting a Switch, and unfortunately I just didn't get in the pre-order game for that mess though. So I was really crossing my fingers, dot my eyes, crossing my T's that somehow the stars could align for me to get that Nintendo Switch. I still vividly remember this. I was a college student at the time, and I remember going to my local Target to pick up that Nintendo Switch, and I remember they had some postings up there on Twitter or something like that saying, hey, we're gonna have X amount of consoles available for people to walk up and purchase that didn't necessarily have a pre-order locked up in, but hey, you were able to kind of get up early, get in line, and just do that. Target was clutch, at least for that though. Not only did I manage to get that, I did manage to get Breath of the Wild, not just the standard edition, but the freaking limited edition. I was like, oh shoot, I was just somehow so lucky to get it. I didn't get the master edition, just got the standard limited edition one. I like the box art on that one a little bit better though. But man, I seen countless hours into Breath of the Wild, and it was so crazy just to see Zelda break all of its previous conventions and stuff with the dungeons, for better or for worse. I know some people miss those dungeons and stuff like that though, but the fact that was just a completely open world game, and just being able to explore Elden Volcano or the Lanru Desert and stuff like that, get lost in the Lost Woods. I mean, that was a really cool game. And man, I felt like I tried to explore every nook and cranny up in that game. Didn't go through and beat all the shrines and stuff like that though, but I really thoroughly enjoyed that game. And then, you know, later on in that year, Splatoon 2, like, gosh, man, I not much of a shooter kind of fan though, but like, shoot, when it comes to third-person shooters, Splatoon, that's the series for me. I skipped out on the Wii U one because it just never really came up until like Nintendo started doing those tournaments. That's when I started turning my eyes over there to it, and they started pushing this game a whole bunch because they were trying to push out Nintendo Switch Online as a thing though, because remember the first year was supposed to be for free. They went on and did it way longer than that though. But I mean, man, I put probably well over like 1,000 hours or something like that in Splatoon 2, let alone Splatoon 3 when we got that like what 5 years later or something like that. And I put countless hours up in there though. So I'll say, hey, in terms of shooting games, that is the series for me. I'm highly competitive. I managed to hit rank X up on that thing. A great freaking experience right there though. And then I look towards the later parts of 2017 in October of that year where we had Mario Odyssey. Look, man, New Donk City was absolutely amazing. Like, it doesn't get much better than that. The Cappy mechanic stuff was great. I love everything that there was with Mario Odyssey and stuff. Look, I don't necessarily go around 100% a lot of Nintendo games though, but Mario Odyssey was definitely that one game where I went out and got every single stinking move. You know, all the standard ones, and then I bought enough additional moons so that way it just looked like I had 999 moons. Like, I did everything you possibly could up in that game. It was a great experience from start to finish though. And then you look at, in terms of like RPGs, the Nintendo Switch was an RPG beast. Like, literally, there were so many different great RPGs out there, not just first party but also third parties as well, where it's like, hey, this was just the perfect system for it, because with it being a handheld and a home console hybrid, you can play that stuff on your big screen television when you're just at the comfort of your home or whatever though. But if you want to sneak in a little bit of extra gameplay sessions, whether you're just laying in the bed or you happen to be cooking or something like that, and you're just, you know, waiting for the oven to get done or something on the stovetop stuff. I've done all of those different examples. Shoot, I think I played it in the plane before, maybe a couple of times. Not too often though, but I think a couple of times I did manage to pull that stunt though, and it came in clutch during road trips and stuff like that. Hey, RPGs, that was the easiest way to do it, because you can just easily put the game in sleep mode and then bring it back up. But Xenolade Chronicles 2, oh man, my boy Mario was trying to get me on Xenolade Chronicles series for the longest time, and when I jumped into Xenolade Chronicles 2, man, that is a definitely by far a top 10 game for me, period. It's up there with like my Mario 64s and stuff like that. Like, when I think of favorite games, Xenolade Chronicles 2, that mess was it. That mess hit me on an emotional level once I managed to go through and beat the whole entire game, where I was like, dang, it kind of shook me up. It kind of brought a tear to my eye though. I normally don't do that with a whole bunch of games though, but that game was an exception right there. And that was just a beautiful gem of a game. I mean, yes, it did have some of its flaws there with like performance and stuff like that. I mean, at some point, Nintendo will probably go back around. If it's a Switch 2 edition, they remake or remaster it years down the road, I would love to revisit this game once again though, because man, I was like, oh shoot, that is a heck of a game. Great story, great mechanics and stuff like that. And I went on to play a whole bunch of other Xenoblade Chronicles games. We had Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. That managed to be brought over to the Switch. We managed to have Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Then they managed to tie up the whole entire saga of Xenoblade Chronicles. And that was a satisfying conclusion when you had, what was it, Future Redeem? With that DLC stuff and bringing back Rex and Shulk and everybody all together. I was like, man, that was just some good stuff right there. So overall, those were some great games that we managed to get in 2017, and a few I sprinkled in a little bit later though. Some other novel games I thoroughly enjoyed. Luigi's Mansion 3. I still think that was like a great technical showcase on the Nintendo Switch. I had some really strong, fond memories of that game. And yeah, that's a good Halloween game to kind of go back through and thoroughly enjoy. Third party wise, there's a lot of cool third party games out there. I can't really necessarily hit on every single thing though, but one special highlight I will throw out there: Dragon Quest XI Echoes of Elusive Age Definitive Edition on that Nintendo Switch. Oh shoot, like look, we had that game technically already on, you know, other competing platforms with PlayStation and stuff though, but that Definitive Edition, be able to play the 2D mode or the 3D mode up in there. And that was my first real introduction to Dragon Quest, which Sonic, my good buddy, like, that really got him in love with that series, made him go back and play a whole bunch of other games though. Like, oh my gosh, like that got me thoroughly excited. I really wanted to get my hands on Dragon Quest 12 to see exactly how that turns out to be. I already bought the Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D. I still need to sit through and, you know, manage to go through and beat the rest of that game though. We have Dragon Quest 1 and 2 also coming out HD 2D and stuff. Man, oh man, while we're on HD 2D, Square Enix, I will say this for third parties, they were hitting on that HD 2D series. Remember Octopath Traveler or Octopath Traveler 2 and stuff? The first one I really liked. The second one was okay and stuff like that though. Other HD 2D games, Live Alive, that was one heck of a gem right there. Look, if you don't play any other third party games though, please give that game a shot right there, because man, oh man, that oh my gosh, that's one crazy heck of a game right there though. All those HD 2D games, or even like Triangle Strategy, man, I love myself some strategy games with Fire Emblem and stuff. More on that here in a bit though. But like Triangle Strategy, that was a really cool game in and of itself. Played quite drastically different from a lot of other strategy games I'm kind of used to though. But like, man, Square Enix, they knew what they were cooking with. So that whole HD 2D system they had going with all these Switch games though, mwah, chef's kiss right there, chef's kiss. And then I already talked about strategy games, so let's just go ahead and bring up to the Fire Emblem Three Houses. Look, I don't think I put a lot of time in a lot of different Fire Emblem games throughout, you know, my whole entire history and stuff. Look, I own every single Western release of Fire Emblem, going back to like the Fire Emblem 7, that being a Blazing Blade on the GBA. I have all those physical from that game all the way where we're currently at right now with Fire Emblem Engage. And Three Houses, man, I loved every single bit of that game. Look, I went through and played that game multiple times. Did the Golden Deer route, went and did the Blue Lions route, went and did the Black Eagles. Black Eagles was my favorite one with Edelgard. That's my true team at the end of the day though. And then went back and did the DLC and stuff like that for the Ashen Wolves. Like, that was my Fire Emblem game for the Switch. Engage was cool for the gameplay and stuff like that, but I didn't resonate that well with the art style, or more so to say with the story and stuff though. That just wasn't really rubbing me the right way. But Three Houses, it surely was, because I think between all my playthroughs, I put well over 200 something hours up in that game. I loved every little bit of that, even including with the lead up to it, like with the marketing and stuff. It's like, are you with the Black Eagles, the Blue Lions, or the Golden Deer and stuff like that? Everybody was choosing their sides. Look, they had a very memorable cast up in there. I might not necessarily remember the names of every person, but if you happen to show me a picture of anybody from one of those three teams, or even the church members themselves, like, instantly memories will start coming back though. And I loved all the voice actors that put all the work up in there. That was just a really good game. Now let me spin it over here to my boy, to my other series over here, the Metroid series. Look, Metroid got some love up on the Nintendo Switch, a lot more. Shoot, I don't even know how we didn't manage to have like a Star Fox this generation though. But like Metroid, like, oh shoot, like we had Metroid Dread. I never thought we were going to get another 2D Metroid as a strong follow-up to Samus Returns that was on the 3DS that people really wanted to see over here on the Nintendo Switch. And man, we managed to get stuff like that. Like, that was freaking insane. We managed to get Metroid Prime Remastered though. And then obviously the big, you know, egg in the room, or the big elephant in the room, Metroid Prime 4. I know it was supposed to come out earlier on in the Switch's life though, and it wasn't until much later, until where the Switch is about to exit and the Switch 2 is about to come, where we're finally getting the fruits of labor from Metroid Prime 4. But there was a lot of different Metroid love up on this mess though, so I had to kind of, you know, give a little special shout out for that though. And then also, shoot, the whole entire experience with Nintendo Switch Online. I know for better or for worse, some people love it, some people hate it. I actually thoroughly enjoy it, especially when you consider all the classic games that we managed to get up on this system. Like, we had the NES and the Super Nintendo. Those were the first two consoles though, and it wasn't the only things that we were going to get. No, they turned around and also gave us the N64. They managed to give us the Game Boy. They managed to give us the Game Boy Advance. They managed to also give us some Sega Genesis games and stuff like that. So now, comparing it to what it originally was to where we're currently at right now, and then also the fact they managed to give us NES controllers, wireless Super Nintendo, wireless 64 controllers, and now we're gonna have a GameCube one coming out here fairly soon with the Switch 2. I love the fact that we managed to get those retro style controllers brought to a modern day age, wireless. You don't have to worry about batteries or nothing like that. That in itself is pretty cool though. And then the fact that I know you have to pay for these and you don't necessarily own these year after year when you renew these subscriptions though, but it's just nice to be able to have access to all of this legacy content on the Nintendo Switch, to where now it's like, hey, you own that one system, shoot, Like, that's your good way to play HD NES, HD Super Nintendo, HD N64 games, etc. though. So that's a really great and phenomenal experience. And not even just that, the fact that you're able to play this with your friends on your friends grouping and stuff like that, and be able to play that stuff not even just locally with just an additional controller, but being able to play that online as well. Like, holy shoot, like, I had some timeless fun with games that I grew up with on the N64 or maybe on the NES, and was able to play that with other friends and stuff and share that joy. Like, that is just something insane to me, just to kind of think about that. Just being able to, you know, do that with like a lot of these retro games that's up in, you know, modern day times though. That's just really cool. See that stuff like GoldenEye 007 and stuff like that. Like, man, great times right there, great times. And I know there's a lot of other great, amazing Nintendo Switch games out there that I hadn't even touched upon though, but those were some of the first few that kind of come to mind. Astral Chain, I really like that experience from Platinum Games. Man, I hope Nintendo's able to make another one or partner with Platinum, because I want to see a sequel built off of that though. Good stuff right there. I know you had some games that you might necessarily regret. We had some games come up from the grave with the Famicom Detective Club series. Like, who would have thought we would have had that? Or shoot, with Imyo the Smiling Man, a brand new one in the series though. Like, we had stuff coming out from the grave coming back up to represent for a lot of these series though. F-Zero had like a renaissance. So we had F-Zero 99, all the other previous F-Zero games, from the Super Nintendo all the way up to what's going to be about to be with the GameCube with the F-Zero GX. Like, oh shoot, F-Zero managed to have a comeback up on this system though. And then Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, you remember all those character introductions and stuff like that. Like, I had to mention that game up in there though. Freaking King K. Rool really getting up in the game. Oh shoot, even like crazy third-party characters like Persona. Like, I love my heck out of Persona 5 Royal and stuff, but having him represented with Joker in the game though, great, amazing stuff right there. And the list just keeps going on and on and on. Oh, I'd love to hear all your thoughts on some of your most favorite games from the Nintendo Switch generation down in the comment section down below, because I just threw out a good handful of games. But like, I'm looking over here at my consoles and looking at all the games that I have, and I'm like, I think this is the one generation from Nintendo that I probably had the most amount of games. Shoot, if I were to just do some quick math, I know I probably have over 100 games from all my physical games plus my digital games. I did a good chunk of both of them though, and we had some great, amazing indie games that also were released on this console as well. Shout outs to like Undertale, Celeste. Yeah, I said Undertale, Celeste, Katana Zero. I want to mention that. Also want to throw out there, oh gosh, the silly old crab game. What's the name of that one? Another Crab's Treasure. I want to throw that one out there as well. You had some great indie games up on there though, and I don't really mess around with a ton of them though. But when you have good ones out there, you just have some good ones out there though. Oh shoot, man, the Switch was a amazing console, both for first parties, some great third parties, indie games, favorable memories and stuff like that. The crazy announcements and stuff, the pop-offs with a lot of these Nintendo Directs. Like, shoot, I remember when they were announcing Thousand Year Door, I was like, oh shoot, I didn't think we're never necessarily going to get that. Having the 35th anniversary of Mario and stuff like that, or the 30th anniversary for Fire Emblem and stuff like that. We had like a whole stinking bunch of Kirby games. Had our first inclusion of a 3D Kirby game up on the system as well. The list goes on and on and on, and I know we give the Switch a lot of flack for some of the things like with the performance that it was kind of doing towards the later ending of its life cycle or whatever though, but you have to give credit where credit is due. The Nintendo Switch managed to bring up a whole new generation of like handheld PCs. Like, you have your Asus ROG Allies over here, which I have one of those, and then you also have like your Steam Decks and stuff like that. Like, it inspired a whole bunch of stuff like that. Even made Sony happen to go back and release like a PlayStation Portal or whatever. Now Xbox is probably trying to work on some stuff in the works though, but hey, leave it up to Nintendo to start some crazy new trends and just have everybody else kind of running off with it. Shoot, even their Nintendo Directs got so popular, you have like state of plays and stuff like that. You even have like Xbox, and they actually tagline the Direct stuff with their stuff. So I mean, hey, there's a lot of good things to love and appreciate that Nintendo has managed to do during this generation though. At the point of this recording, we know they sold 152 million Switches. It's close to knocking on the doorstep of beating the Nintendo DS, which is at 154, and before Sony moved the goalpost, it was originally at 155. Now it's at 160. We don't know necessarily if it's going to be able to manage to crack that number. It'll get pretty close. It's going to compete. Don't know if it'll be able to crack it though, but regardless of whatever happens though, the Switch was a great freaking phenomenal system, and I can't wait to see exactly what's in store next for Nintendo when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2. But y'all gotta let me know all your thoughts, your memories, your favorite games, and anything else in between down in the comment section down below, because man, the Nintendo Switch generation, man, that's some good old stuff for a tiny little tablet old system that you were able to play in handheld and dock the sucker on your big screen TV. But that's gonna basically do it in terms of today's video though. So if you really like this, make sure you're gonna hit that like button, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that bell to stay up to date on all things video game related I feel like talking about and discussing. If you're curious and want to support the channel just a little bit more, then feel free to hit that join link down below. But that's gonna truly do it in terms of today's video though. So remember y'all, until whatever video I make next, see y'all.